I welcome, I welcome you all to today's seminar on strengthening Bangladesh's foreign relations with neighbors in the evolving global order. Today, we are very much honored to have amongst us His Excellency, Mr. Mohammad Shahriar Alam MP, Honorable State Minister, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, as the chief guest. Respected audience, today's session will begin with the welcome address by Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, OSP, SGP, BAMS, AFWC, PSC, Director General of BIISS. This will be followed by 4 presentations from 4 distinguished panelists and then an open discussion. Finally, the Honorable Chief Guest of today's seminar will deliver his valuable remarks. Today's seminar will be chaired by Ambassador M. Humayun Kabir, President, Bangladesh Enterprise Institute. May I now request the chair of the session to kindly commence the event. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency, His Excellency Mr. Shahriar Alam, Honorable State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Director General of BIS, Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, distinguished panelists, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome also to this very important, I would say, seminar hosted by the BIS today. And you can see on the screen, the title is The Strengthening of Bangladesh's Foreign Relations with Neighbors in Evolving Global Order. This is a very important, as I say, very important theme and very timely also. Why timely? 2 reasons. One is that we are seeing a storm in the outside world. In our lifetime, we have not seen this kind of, I would say, volatility in the international environment. So for us, a country with modest, I would say, exposure to international environment, this is a big challenge. And this seminar could give us some kind of, I would say, some guideline as to how we need to navigate in this kind of stormy weather in the outside world. The second issue that is important also in this connection is the impending graduation that we are going to face in 2026. So that also involves a lot of preparation from our side to prepare ourselves to negotiate our way in the outside world. So today's seminar will try to, on the one hand, give us an outline of the challenges that Bangladesh is facing now in the outside world, or in other words, the changes or transformation that is taking place in the outside world. And at the same time, how we can create our own space in our neighborhood, which I think is the best option available for us in the context of volatile global transformation that is taking place in the outside world. Ladies and gentlemen, in this connection, let me also say 1 or 2 words about how Bangladesh has made the transition during the last 50 or 51 years. A couple of things I should mention here, and then I should of this to say a few words also. One is that during the last 50 years, 2 things have made our journey, I would say, reasonably smooth. One was the consensus that existed in Bangladesh and also in the outside world, I would say, on the economic agenda. Bangladesh has seen some degree of challenges internally or domestically, but on the economic agenda, there was a consensus across the board. And that helped us to move forward without much difficulty. That was one. And the second one, which really facilitated our growth, particularly during the last 30 years, was the open global environment. Our trade, our remittance, two major pillars of our economy, actually move forward, taking advantage of the global and open global environment, which was the product essentially of what we call as globalization process. Now, we are seeing that process is under tremendous amount of pressure. Tremendous amount of challenges are now greeting the global environment or managing or characterizing the global environment. And in this kind of environment, how do we navigate? The World Economic Forum's last meeting, they have mentioned very clearly, the world is fragmented. So when the world is fragmented, we are in trouble because we are now facing a fragmented world. So the open world that we were familiar with, that is now we are seeing some major shift there. And then other things are also coming up here. Growing economic nationalism is also another challenge that we are going to face, we are going to handle. And that is not only at the global level. We are seeing also that in our neighborhood. So these are the big questions that we'll have to now answer or try to understand and try to find way through. And from that point of view, I think today's seminar is an extremely important seminar because throughout the world, not only the global environment is transforming, every country is now struggling with their neighborhood policy, how to manage the neighborhood as well. And needless to say that our neighborhood is in the vortex of the global challenge or global transformation that is taking place now. The Cold War of the 80s or 70s or 60s has now come to Asia, and it is also affecting us. And the US-China competition is in a way percolating and coming to our part of the world in the form of China-India contest. And that is affecting our fate as well. So in this kind of, I would say, serious or systemic transformation that is taking place, the seminar will try to address some of these issues. And we have a very distinguished set of panelists here. We'll go to them after hearing from the DG of BIS, Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin. May I now invite him to say a few words. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honored Chief Guest, Mr. Mohammad Shahriar Alam MP, Honorable State Minister, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, respected Chair, Ambassador M. Humayun Kabir, learned panelists, Excellencies, distinguished guests, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to you all. On behalf of Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, let me welcome you all to today's seminar on strengthening Bangladesh's foreign relations with neighbors in evolving global order. Our heartfelt gratitude to the Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Mohammad Shahriar Alam MP, for gracing the occasion. At the outset, please let me pay my deepest homage and reverence to the memory of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and millions of martyrs who made their supreme sacrifice in every struggle for our national emancipation and independence. Ladies and gentlemen, the evolving global political and strategic order has signaled a new reality of Asia's reemergence as the global pivot. The reemergence of China and India as the major powers in the regional and global power architecture have relocated the geostrategic gravity towards Asia. strategic initiatives like Asian rebalancing strategy of the United States, China's Belt and Road Initiative, Indo-Pacific strategy promoted by different regional and extra-regional powers, Quad and AUKUS alliance, etc., appeared around the Indo-Pacific and created a more complex regional order. Those strategic initiatives are aiming at addressing the issues of security threats, norms, and alliance building, infrastructure, and economic development. However, such power politics in this region has created more geopolitical hotspots, overlapping political and economic partnerships, and risks of conflicts. As Indo-Pacific on its way to becoming a critical ground for collaboration and competition, both the regional and global powers have made this region a ground for convergence of their interests and for divergent approaches, and thus Indo-Pacific gained geostrategic, economic, and geopolitical centrality. Therefore, balancing the emerging realities and enhancing cooperation by minimizing competition within the great power rivalry would be the major challenge for the countries of this region in the near future. Distinguished guests, after the shock of pandemic, global economy has started to regain its momentum, but Russia-Ukraine war in Europe has brought disruptions again in the global supply chains, compelling the other developing and middle-income countries to embrace another shock of potential global recession. Hence, ensuring cooperation and peaceful relations among the countries of the world is a sine qua non to achieve the stability of the global economy and save the humanity. Dear participants, Bangladesh, being a key littoral of the Bay of Bengal, bears a great geostrategic significance in the Indo-Pacific region. It is considered as the gateway to South and Southeast Asia, making itself a hub for regional and inter-regional trade and commercial activities. Nevertheless, in this globalized world, no country can remain aloof from the impacts of the tensions arose from the events happening around the world. Therefore, any potential escalation of tension in the Indo-Pacific region would have far greater implications for the Asian countries as well as for Bangladesh. Ladies and gentlemen, Bangladesh promotes peace and stability. It has become a pioneer of global peace and a role model for growth in the Asian region. Article 25 of the Constitution of Bangladesh reflects the key tone of the nature of the country's foreign policy behavior. Bangladesh always follows the policy of responding international norms and laws and maintains warm relations with the global community through its famous dictum, coined by the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, that is, friendship to all, malice towards none. Dear audience, Bangladesh always welcomes partnership and promotes regional cooperation for its own development interests and peace for the region and beyond. The country prioritizes its own vision of achieving global peace and development. It promotes multilateralism to find peaceful and sustainable solution of the regional problems, which is highly reflected in the remarks of our Honorable Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, as she mentioned, and I quote, "Any initiative in the region should include the creation of an environment of peace, harmony, and stability of all countries, should focus on all aspects of sustainable development, engage countries based on mutual trust and mutual respect for mutual benefit," I unquote. To keep its development momentum intact, Bangladesh is emphasizing on engaging and strengthening economic cooperation with all stakeholders like India, China, the USA, the European countries, and other regional neighbors. Bangladesh is also promoting its development agenda through the active participation in the multilateral arrangements like BIMSTEC, BBIN, IORA, and ARF, etc. Dear participants, another priority area of Bangladesh is peaceful repatriation of the Rohingyas in Myanmar, which has become a major regional security concern. As geopolitics surrounding Myanmar and the Rakhine region have further complicated the Rohingya issue, Bangladesh is focusing on engaging major regional and global powers to come forward to solve the crisis and ensure stability in the region. Besides, Bangladesh is emphasizing on strengthening bilateral and multilateral relations with both close-door neighbors and extended neighbors to enhance maritime cooperation, to tap potentials from the marine resources and tackle non-traditional security threats in the maritime space. Ensuring supply of energy resources to meet the energy demand and ensuring supply of food and food security, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, I would conclude my remarks by reiterating that Bangladesh pursues a policy of mutual respect and benefit, principle of tolerance and peace, solving problems with dialogues and negotiations. And thus, Bangladesh becomes a role model for peace in the region and beyond. However, changes in the regional order and new strategic realities bring both challenges and opportunities. Bangladesh needs to balance and navigate through these challenges strategically to uphold its national interests. We'll learn more from our today's learned panelists, and I hope from today's discussion, we'll be able to come up with effective policy suggestions for Bangladesh. Finally, I again express my gratitude to the Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Mohammad Shahriar Alam MP, respected Chair, distinguished panelists, media representatives, and the learned audience for encouraging us with your kind participation. Thank you very much. Joy Bangla.
Thank you, General Pasha, for your kind welcome address. You have also given us a flavor of the discussions that is likely to be followed soon. And as I have mentioned at the beginning, that we have a very distinguished set of panelists today. They will just bring us a kind of picture about the global environment, and also then give us some suggestions with regard to how we can manage our neighborhood for better or productive relationship within the cooperative framework to advance our national interest in cooperation with others in the neighborhood. So I will now invite Dr. Lailufer Yasmin, Professor of International Relations Department, Dhaka University. She will be speaking on the navigating Bangladesh's foreign policy with the neighbors in the evolving global order. So that would be Lailufer's theme. And I would request her to limit her presentation within 15 minutes, if possible. Lailufer, you have the floor. Ambassador Hanan, can I invite you to come over here?
Thank you very much, BISS, Thank you very much to BISS for inviting me. This is from where I've started my professional career, and I'm always indebted for that. His Excellency, distinguished guests, and members of the audience, as well as I could see faces of a number of my students present here. It is my great pleasure today to be invited and to talk about something that is, as said before, extremely topical and extremely important for us to discuss. Because foreign policy cannot be made in isolation. Foreign policy must be a reflection of the domestic consensus about how Bangladesh would like to project itself to the rest of the world. So the title of my presentation is Navigating Bangladesh's Foreign Relations with the Neighbors in the Evolving Global Order. So one thing we can say for sure, anyone who is from Bangladesh or anyone who is a keen observer of international politics or South Asia is that there has been a tremendous attention internationally about Bangladesh. We are not only talking about diplomatic attention, but also we are talking about Hollywood taking interest in Bangladesh and asking questions, Praman Dao. So it is our task standing here to talk about from Bangladesh to provide evidence that why Bangladesh is important and why we need to bring Bangladesh in the global discussion of policy making. Because in today's world, we are not only see politics taking place in different manner. That is, it is no longer a black and white world. There's a distinctively gray zone there, as well as the countries who did not have voice. They are in the 20th century. They have managed to find their voice. Therefore, we can see the increased interest about Bangladesh, and we need to talk about this and talk about how Bangladesh is to be seen and how it has crossed over to today's position. So in 1976, we know the famous statement that Bangladesh was seen as the test case of development, a country which emerged with virtually nothing, no infrastructure, no foreign currency in its reserve. It was seen as the test case of development by especially economists, saying that if Bangladesh can develop with scarce resources or no resources at all, then any country of the world can do so. Interestingly, after 51 years of its sovereign existence, we can see that Bangladesh has not only been able to achieve a miraculous economic development and its political stand in international politics, but it is something that has not been able to other countries not have been able to emulate Bangladesh's success. Why? This is a big area of question, something that I'll come a little bit later, but to point out that Bangladesh has followed a unique model of development where it has not followed a textbook case of Western model of development, but it has also included a non-Western approach in its development projects. So today's title, in light of today's title, I can see the three areas that I want to focus. If we look at the title, we can see Bangladesh's foreign relations. We can see we are talking about Bangladesh's neighbors, and very timely, once again, evolving global order, something that previous two speakers before me have pointed out. So what do we talk about when we talk about Bangladesh's foreign relations? First of all, Bangladesh's foreign policy dictum on something that Bangladesh's all foreign relations connections, its relationship with its neighbors as well as extra-regional powers is based on its friendship with all, malice towards none. So here we can see often this has been questioned. Often, foreign observer as well as domestic observers have asked that if this is only a foreign policy dictum or if this is something that we can follow in 21st century, whether it is time for Bangladesh to talk about more pointedly about its foreign policy goals and objectives. But one thing we forget, that Bangladesh has rested on this particular aspect, that it has welcomed its door for all the countries of the world whenever Bangladesh is, whenever Bangladesh's interest, Bangladesh's development issues are concerned. So this is one thing that is meant and that is embodied in Bangladesh's perspective, that we are talking about opening up our door for everyone who is interested to be partner of Bangladesh's foreign relations. Here we can see that Bangladesh in last 50 years, it has transitioned from being an aid-dependent country to a trade-dependent country. This is a massive transformation in Bangladesh's development, economic development, which has made itself to be able to stand on its 2 feet. And from this perspective, during the COVID pandemic period, what we have seen, although global supply chain was severely disrupted, Bangladesh has been one of the few countries where there was not one death due to COVID-related, mismanagement of food or hunger or this kind of issues. So there is something it says about Bangladesh, that because it is not directly connected to global supply chain in the manner that many other countries are, because our trade is done in a manner that is not done by other countries. Not only that, another development that has happened inside Bangladesh is that development of circular economy, which was the need of the time, something that we can see in some of the Southeast Asian countries, for example, Cambodia, for example, Vietnam. So circular economy meaning that here, in particularly rural areas, people have a connection, have a method of self-survival. This is something that entirely non-Western approach. You will not find this in Western model of economic development. So this is something often we have not been able to pay attention to and articulate Bangladesh's survival mechanism during especially COVID pandemic period. So economic diplomacy is something that Bangladesh has pursued from a very different perspective. Once again, I'm not here only praising about Bangladesh, I'm just pointing out what are the things that we have done differently. That is economic diplomacy, which means entire gamut of trade, aid, and managing economic relationship with the others. Bangladesh's focus has been on development diplomacy. That is, how can you draw FDI, foreign direct investment in Bangladesh? How can you create an environment for foreign direct investment? How can you tap which are the countries who are interested to come to Bangladesh to invest? So development diplomacy is a particular approach along with which later on energy security, energy diplomacy is connected. So from that perspective, Bangladesh has fared well because it has not seen economic diplomacy as a broad area. As you know, that a number of countries, including Japan, including Australia, they are now pointing out economic security as primary emphasis, especially after the COVID pandemic. Bangladesh has also paid particular attention to development diplomacy. Climate diplomacy, former UN Secretary General has pointed out Bangladesh as a climate leader. Why? Because here we have been able to address the issue of climate change from, once again, from local perspective, from indigenous perspective. We have been able to work with foreign experts and develop climate resistant crops. So there are a number of areas that Bangladesh has been able to achieve strides that has not been able to achieve for many other countries. Then in terms of energy diplomacy and migration diplomacy, we have paid attention that what are the strengths of Bangladesh, and that are the areas that Bangladesh has paid attention in its foreign policy maneuvering. There are many other areas, but I'm just pointing limiting this discussion in these particular areas. Article 25 of our constitution lays out the foundation of Bangladesh's foreign policy, on the basis of which Bangladesh carries out its foreign relations with other countries of the world. So now if we talk about Bangladesh's neighbor, so how do we define neighborhood? How do we define neighbors in Westphalian system where we do not get to choose our neighbors, but we are given with neighbors. So here we see any countries that are sharing the borders are defined as neighbors. So we take a very land-centric disposition and understanding of who we call neighbors. From that perspective, we know that we have two neighbors. We have India, our biggest neighbor and biggest country of South Asia, and we have Myanmar. However, as we can see that 21st century might also be called as a maritime century, where strategies, where visions are surrounded around a country's engagements with and a country's locational issues. And that is why my previous speaker have talked about IPS, have talked about Indo-Pacific, have talked about Quad, AUKUS. All of these we can see are taken from the very maritime perspective. And if we look at the very nature of South Asian politics, colonialism here in this part of the world and many part of the world, it has started from using the maritime corridor. The first ship landed in Kolkata port, and we need to remember that it has only. Okay. Okay, so we can see that how these maritime issues have gained so importance in this, especially this century. So this I would like to point out as discovery of the oceans. Oceans were always there, but their strategic importance were often limited, especially during 20th century. So here we can see when we talk about Bangladesh's neighbors, we have certain locational advantages, we have certain locational disadvantage. A country as big as India, when it is a neighbor and when we share the fifth largest land boundary, it gives us enormous opportunity as well as enormous strategic disadvantages about how to sort of settle issues between two neighbors. Neighbors are here to stay. We have to take into account of our neighbors' issues as well as we have to take into account of what is in our national interest. Bangladesh, Myanmar being Bangladesh's neighbor is both a boon and both as a it is also a sort of issue for Bangladesh, especially with having a short land border with Myanmar. We have seen now we are hosting about 1.2 million Rohingyas whose sustainable and safe repatriation is high priority on the agenda of Bangladesh foreign relations. Why I'm calling Myanmar, despite this, Myanmar is as an advantage for Bangladesh, because we saw Myanmar as a corridor for connecting with Southeast Asia to connect with ASEAN. So this is something, let us not forget that there is also a potential to work with Myanmar and along with resolving our issues with Myanmar. Then Bay of Bengal has always been there, but until and unless our maritime delimitation issues were resolved with Myanmar and India respectively, we did not have an unfettered access to the Bay of Bengal. And because we did not have an unfettered interest, it did not fare in our national policies as it should have been. We know that Bangladesh was one of the first countries to propose creation of maritime safe zone in the Indian Ocean region. Later on, because of Bangladesh's lack of access to the Bay of Bengal, that did not materialize. But we can see from the earlier this decade how the Bay of Bengal and actually attracted great powers' interest towards this part of the region and especially to Bangladesh. So here, let me just hurry through. And when we are talking about evolving global order, evolving is actually one of the best ways to describe present world order, because from bipolar world order in the 20th century with the end of the Cold War, what we have moved to is a unipolarity for a period, and now probably pluralitarian system, because where countries are only paying attention to their own interest, and therefore we are seeing the emergence of issue-based regionalism. We are seeing issue-based alliances and cooperative frameworks. Issue-based pacts, AUKUS, for example, comes with a number of opportunities, but at the same time, pacts like AUKUS also bring new kind of arms race to the Asian region, where now Asian countries are not only the buyers, but some of the Asian countries do have the technology to create new kind of weapons. So weapons race is now coming to Asia, but in a very different way, and that is something we need to remember. Often we can see that this time is called as Cold War, but I would argue that this is neither cold nor a war, because there is no ideological rivalry per se between United States of America and China. It is in the interest of both United States of America and China to sustain the current economic order. So this is something we need to remember, we need to realize, and how this has become, a catchphrase that a new, this is a new Cold War, but from very international business perspective, it is not. What we can see is that rather a new kind of neutralism or new kind of non-alignment movement is emerging, where countries are more eager to be agenda setter. Countries are more eager to assert their policies and they have the agenda setting capacity, and they have willingness to engage with all. Remember the non-alignment movement of 20th century was very much different than 21st century non-alignment movement, because in 20th century the members of the non-aligned movement, they did not have the capacity either to be assertive or to be agenda setter. But now look at Indonesia is one of the forerunners of new type of non-aligned movement, and Bangladesh is one of the important and significant country who pursues this particular type of assertive agenda setting role when it comes to the issues that are important to Bangladesh's policies. So in conclusion, I would say what can be Bangladesh's choices, because region is what provides a country a particular kind of identity, a particular type of springboard to assert itself at a global level. So here we can see that. Yeah, I'm almost done. Here we can see that, for Bangladesh, we can see that a number of articles started to emerge from 2011, 2012, that Bangladesh is the standard bearer of South Asia, that great game is coming to Bangladesh. So a number of, write-ups started to, publish, get published in international forum. But now we can see that the beginning of this decade is when Bangladesh is seeing itself being called as a rising middle power in the sense that Bangladesh is interested to settle its issue, to provide or promote its agenda in a regional sense. And when it comes to, for example, in United Nations General Assembly in 2021, when a resolution was passed against Myanmar, Bangladesh abstained from voting because it did not adequately incorporated concern of Bangladesh in that particular agenda. Then Bangladesh rewrote the agenda when later on it was placed in UNGA. Bangladesh voted in favor of it. So there are a number of ways that Bangladesh has shown that it is no longer a small state in a typical international relations sense. Rather, it is hosting 170 million people in a short geographic span. But at the same time, we have to see that how its population can be its strength. So Bangladesh is rather emerging as a middle power, and we have to learn how to carefully portray this particular assertive posture and assertive agenda setting role for Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Chair's job is not very easy. Huh? I have to just be harsh and tough on the speakers. Sorry for that, Lailufer. But I think I should thank Lailufer for bringing out a lot of elements here in the global environment, development, diplomacy, great game coming to Bangladesh, rising middle power, very interesting concepts. And I hope that we can think over these concepts and then perhaps articulate a concrete path forward. Because in my view, Bangladesh has never faced the challenge we are now facing. 2 days back, the World Bank Managing Director for Operations, he said that Bangladesh is facing a really difficult time now, and we know why. He mentioned 3 things: COVID, Russia-Ukraine war, and the climate. But I think we have more serious issues to deal with that she has mentioned about development diplomacy, how far we are connected to development, or how far diplomacy can promote our development. So these 2 issues are critical, and we'll have to find or search for answers to those issues. Now, let me invite Mr. A.T.M. Rakibul Haq, Director General South Asia, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He will be speaking on Bangladesh's foreign policy towards our neighbors, friendship with shared prosperity. Rakib spent quite a deal of time in Delhi. So with his exposure into India and other countries, I think he will be able to give us a slightly different perspective on our relationship in the neighborhood. Rakib, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Chief guest of today's event, Honorable State Minister for Foreign Affairs, my distinguished co-panelists, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Thanks to BIS for organizing this seminar, as well as inviting me to speak or to share my views on the aspect of what actually Foreign Office pursue with our neighbors. First, let us see that who are our neighbors. Starting from the north, we can say that the neighbors we can define in many ways. But when we say that South Asian neighbor is starting from Afghanistan, Pakistan, a big country in the middle, India, Nepal, Bhutan, and not Myanmar is not our South Asian neighbor, of course neighbor, but in the south we have two island countries, Sri Lanka and Maldives. Then you can see that how actually we are being surrounded by a big country, India. That is, we have a border almost more than 4,000 kilometers. And that is a very important aspect of determining our foreign policy towards our neighbor. Then I would like to define our neighbors. You see that there's a saying in diplomacy we say that history and geography are the father and mother of diplomacy. India, as I said, Bangladesh was part of India till 1947, and Bangladesh shares the world's fifth largest border, which is more than 4,100 kilometers, and also share 54 common rivers. And who are the other South Asian neighbors? We have Afghanistan, Bhutan, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. And we have close border with Nepal and Bhutan, and which are landlocked. Then we have religious connections with a country like Afghanistan and Pakistan. But the Islam is being practiced in Bangladesh is not similar to that of in those countries. And we have two island countries, that is Maldives and Sri Lanka, which is far from Bangladesh. Then I would like to define that how the Foreign Office actually determined the neighborhood diplomacy. What are the tools and what are the foreign policy that we pursue with our neighbor? First, we take the vision, which is our cardinal principle of our foreign policy from our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, friendship to all, malice towards none. Second, what says our Prime Minister? Our Prime Minister often says, which is actually is very important for us to determine our foreign policy towards neighbor. She says that she calls for inclusive development and shared prosperity in the regions, and Bangladesh has portrayed an image of true friend among the South Asian countries. Then we can get some ideas or vision from our foreign minister. He remarked once that we must not forget that we are living in a fast changing, complex and hyper-connected world. We cannot make progress in any area by working alone. Also, if you can see his body language, he is inviting other neighboring countries to come and collaborate and cooperate with us. And he says once that Bangladesh government is working promptly to establish the country as a regional hub for connectivity to ensure inclusive development and in the entire South Asia region. So that is how actually we formulate our foreign policy towards our neighbors. That is, we want to have a friendly relations with shared prosperity and peace. Now, I would like to define 5 components for which actually we use this as a foreign office, foreign policy tools to our neighbor. Like first, promoting friendly relations based on mutual trust and respect. When we say mutual trust and respect, it means that we don't actually see or pursue our foreign policy according to the size or the population or geographic whatever. We have smaller neighbors like Bhutan and Maldives, but when we pursue our foreign policy, we always try to ensure similar kind of respect to them, the way actually we respect other neighbors. Then conducting balancing acts on strategic issues is very important, that we don't do anything, or when we actually engage with them, we don't try to put any underlying meaning like that whether it should it should fulfill the purpose of other big countries or neighbors in the region. Then strengthening effective sectoral cooperation, of course. We have identified water sector cooperation, trade, promoting trade, power sector cooperation, energy, and connectivity. And of course, we always pursue for, people-to-people contacts. And last but not the least, that we always try to demonstrate soft power with impressive tangible impacts like humanitarian assistance, what I will come later. Very briefly, I want to point out a few aspects that actually, when we look at our foreign policy objectives and purpose with a big neighbor like India, what are the things basically that why Bangladesh has become important for India? Might be many other reasons, might be many other aspects, but we have identified few of them for the cause of the given time. Of course, India sees Bangladesh as a big destination for India's goods and services. India receives the highest number of tourists from Bangladesh, as well as the highest number of medical patients. Important destination of Indian seeking white-collar jobs and one of the largest source of inward remittance for India. That's how actually Bangladesh is contributing to the economy of India. It's very important. And also, Bangladesh is very important for India because ensuring security and stability in the northeastern states of India. Bangladesh is the most trusted friend in India, in South Asia, and ensuring connectivity between mainland India and Northeast India. Bangladesh is also very, very important in the foreign policy domain of India. Then a few aspects that why India is important for Bangladesh. Of course, India provides us the highest amount of LOC, they call it Development Partner Line of Credit, as a single country. We have 54 common rivers. So water sharing is always a very, very important aspect. Power cooperation is very important aspect for us. For ensuring peace and security, we need support and some sort of cooperation from India. Destination for our tourism and medical tourism or treatment, because Bangladesh is growing, our economy is growing. So for the middle class people, upper middle class, India is a very attractive tourist destination. India is also, that the major source of our raw materials. We have a trade deficit of almost $14 billion with India. And out of that, almost 10 billions are raw materials. So that is also very important for us because it is the closest market or source of destination for any products or essential commodities for Bangladesh. Then, of course, India is very close by. So for any natural disaster, India is the country to respond immediately. And of course, it's a big neighbor, regional power, nothing wrong with it. No question about that. It's a brand, it's an old civilization. So other Western countries also very, very, they give lots of importance of India's policy. So it matters. Immediate neighbors and issues of mutual interest, I said, and connectivity with Nepal and Bhutan. So we have close connections with Nepal and Bhutan, but of course there is some border or land that we actually need to cross when we, cross through land or anything, or that Bangladesh is planning to import power from Nepal and Bhutan. These are the countries who have surplus power, but we need the territory of India for transmission of this power. So that is also a very important aspect for us. Well, for India, that our sector cooperation, we say sometimes that it encompasses all the sectors under the sun. So, and we have a joint mechanism, more than 70. And every time on every particular month, there are 5 to 6 joint working group meetings, whether it is commerce, whether it is home, whether it is security, and blah, blah, on every other aspects. So there are some commonalities other than India. What on a broad aspect we can find that countries other than India in South Asia region, we see that the economy is not very common, strong. There is sometimes they are suffering from political instability. Sometimes largely they are influenced by India and China and member of SAARC and BIMSTEC. Now I would touch upon a few aspects that if I say that what is the common objective or purpose of our foreign policy tools for these neighbors, especially the South Asian neighbors. You see, sir?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay. So the high-level exchange of high-level visit is very important. Last year, our Prime Minister visited in the month of September, and in 2021, Indian Prime Minister and President visited Bangladesh, and in a single year, which is unprecedented. And of course, I should go a little quick. Water sector cooperation is very important with all our neighbors. And last year, actually, we had a landmark MOU, that withdrawal of water from common river Kushiara. And for that, we can ensure irrigation for 5,000 hectare land in the Sylhet region. Then power sector cooperation, we are now importing 1,160 megawatt power from India. And also we are expecting to import 1,600 megawatt electricity from India's Adani Godda power plant, which will commission in March 2023. At the same time, we expect that there's a we call friendship pipeline that will we expect to commission in June. June 2023, from where actually Numaligarh is a place located in Bihar. From that, we were to bring diesel through a designated pipeline. Trade and commerce, largest trade partner. Bangladesh is the largest trade partner in South Asia for India. And also, we always promote trade. I will give you an example that recently we allow Bhutanese to open letter of credit as a special arrangement so that they can export their orange to Bangladesh. And also we have issued a SRO to open Banglabandha land port for Nepal importing yarn to Bangladesh.
Okay, quick.
Okay, I'm skipping other things, capacity building. Last, that now I would like to, this is going to be my concluding slide, that what is the assessment of other South Asian countries? How do they see Bangladesh? Let me tell you that in line with the principle or commitment of our HPM, that inclusive development and shared prosperity, which provides towards assistance and neighbors that portray image of Bangladesh as a true friend of South Asian region. So the main manifestation is that when we celebrate Mujib Chirantan in 2021 in March, all the heads of the government or heads of the state in the South Asia region participated and joined our hands in celebration. And as I already told that in 2021 to celebrate few things, even the 50th years of our diplomatic relation with India and Pakistan, Bangladesh, the president and the prime minister of India visited, and these countries see this relationship as a problem-free and trouble-free relationship. And the last thing I would like to point it out, that India is a big country here, and they want to take Bangladesh as their partner to face the challenges and or as well as to address the common challenges which global what we see in the globally. And recent times when India has the presidency of G20, they have invited few countries as the guest country, and they have included Bangladesh as one of the countries. The last line that I would say that these countries are very, very associated with our happiness, and they have a lot of goodwill. And I would, give you a proof that when we inaugurated our Padma Bridge on 25th of June 2022, we received a message of congratulations from all the countries. Only India issued a press release, but all the countries, including Pakistan, issued a message of congratulations to our Prime Minister. So lastly, I would say that the foreign policy that we are pursuing towards our neighbor is strengthening bilateral relation with our neighbors through progressive partnership for shared peace, prosperity, and inclusive development. I thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rokibul Haq, for giving an overview of our approach or our relationship with the neighboring countries, India being the, I would say, the major focus, but also about the other countries. And myself, having served in Nepal and visited other countries, I can only tell you that Bangladesh is rated quite high, and people love to see Bangladesh as a partner. So from that point of view, I think Rakib has tried to articulate or organize his thoughts about Bangladesh policies towards the neighboring countries. With India, I think we have relationship, but the struggle is how we can make it more sustainable. That is the big issue, and make it more, I would say, mutually beneficial. I remember Honorable Prime Minister in Dalian in 2019 said something very, I would say, profound words about foreign relations. It has to be based on mutual trust, mutual benefit, and shared interest. So I think those are the words, and I think those words are equally not only relevant for our neighbors, but outside world, and that should be the basis of our relationship with all the neighbors. Thank you, Rakib, for your good presentation. And now let me invite Dr. Mahfuz Kabir, who is the Research Director of BIS. He will be speaking for 15 minutes on the theme of exploring new avenues for cooperation with the neighbors. So he will give us an idea about the future pathway of our relationship with our neighbors. Thank you.
Thanks, respected chair of the seminar, the honorable chief guest, respected Director General of the ISS, my fellow panelists, and ladies and gentlemen. So I'll be speaking very briefly on the new avenues of cooperation with our neighbors. So, and basically, I'll be focusing on the economics and developmental aspects of cooperation. So, as already mentioned by the respected chair, so there is a backdrop of the whole thing. Like many parts of the world, Bangladesh is currently, in fact, undergoing an uncomfortable period, I would say. So, and there is a back-to-back two major events. One is COVID-19 and then Ukraine conflict, and then it has dampened the impressive economic growth. Bangladesh has been, in fact, identified as one of the best performers in terms of recovering from the fallout of COVID-19, and during the period of 2021. So, and Bangladesh has experienced a slowed growth, but it has rapidly caught up. So, and in 2021-22, the growth rate was 7.25%. So, it's one of the rarest countries of the world who achieved this kind of impressive growth. But there's a massive disruption nowadays because of the conflict, and there's a huge disruption in the global input-output supply chain. So the food, energy, and others. So these are all undergoing the serious pressure, and it has, in fact, created and deepened the slowdown globally. So, and Bangladesh is one of the affected countries of that, and it has also reduced international demand. So that's one of the other issues. So that South Asian countries are facing. So if you see in fact, the response from Bangladesh, so we, in fact, immediately took the selective austerity. So it was not some kind of secular austerity. So for all the sectors of the economy, but the important sectors like implementing the mega projects. So these are in the priority list, and also the importing the essential items and discouraging the non-essential items to import. So that was also an important issue. And under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, there's a macro-prudent policy, and this came after a long time. So during the other, in fact, global slowdown back in 8 to 9. So the government, in fact, undertook the macroprudent policy, and then now we again they restored it, and the reforms to address the supply shock. So we try to rationalize the demand and the rationing of some of the important utilities, and then regulation of non-essential imports. So that was also thing. Good thing, and export growth. So despite all the problems in the global economy and region, so Bangladesh has achieved remarkable growth in terms of exports, and it was around 52 billion dollars in the goods export in the last fiscal year, and the services export was around $9 billion US. So and altogether 61. So it's according to the in fact export policy of the country, but still we are facing the pressure in the external sector, especially because of the dollar crisis, and we are in fact experiencing depletion of the foreign currency reserve, and fortunately the IMF has come beside us. So it has in fact it promised to in fact formalities is going on, but we are expecting $40.5 billion US loan in a very short period of time. So what are the milestones? As already mentioned by the Honorable Chair, so it's graduation in 2026 from the LDCs, so SDG implementation by 2030. So that would be another kind of challenge, but we are in fact on track in some of the important targets. Upper middle income country by 2031, and then Vision 2041 to become a high income, developed nation and smart Bangladesh. So that's an overarching kind of objective. So now how we can in fact achieve all the and overcome all the challenges and achieve these milestones. So Bangladesh, one of the important in fact instrument is international trade. So and especially the export. So that is the thing. Another in fact lifeline would be the remittance inflow. So that is two. And if we can see the sources and destination of important exports, so mainly we in fact source from the region. So from South Asia and Southeast Asia and to some extent East Asia, and then we export to the in fact developed parts of the world, and also some countries like Japan, South Korea, and in fact in the Middle East. So that is the in fact characteristics. And if we consider that the case of market diversification, because now we are talking about the in fact export diversification from the products, services, and markets. So what would be the market? So and in India we are doing very well in terms of export, specifically in 2021 and also 2022. If you consider the data up to December, so it's pretty good. So it's about $1.1 billion so far, and we are expecting about $2.2 billion if the current rate prevails. But what about the case of China? So even though China is providing 99%, so since September, so duty-free access, but still we cannot do that much well. So that is a problem. And if we consider the analysis of International Trade Center, so we have a huge potential of exporting goods and services within the even 99% of the in fact duty-free access. So now if we see that our trade with the neighborhood, we consider the case of South Asia, Southeast Asia, and to some extent East Asia, then definitely in BBIN we are exporting. Our trade is 12.09%, SAARC 12.81%, BIMSTEC 13.1%, ASEAN countries around 10.6%. So altogether, if we consider the SAARC, BIMSTEC, ASEAN, so 23.4, and if we include China, then 38.69. Again, if we consider the case of in fact our trade with South Korea and Japan, then it becomes 43%. So that is basically the thing, and so we can in fact build on the performance of international trade with the region, especially the Asian, East Asia, South Asian, and BBN countries. So now, as I already mentioned, we are implementing the mega project. So that is required because we want to become the regional hub, and then we want to in fact improve our standard of life and to become a developed country. So we have to have the mega projects, and Honorable Prime Minister has rightly in fact selected that and in fact directed that we need to continue the mega project, but we need to in fact decide about the relatively unimportant projects. So and that's what is happening. So that is a part of the in fact selective austerity. And if we consider the Neighbours investment in Bangladesh and trade and investment, so we have a considerable investment and trade with India, as already mentioned. So we are sourcing basically the raw materials and intermediate goods from India. If we consider the top items, so cotton, so it's 4.2 billion in the last fiscal year, cereals 2.1, and then vehicles around the $1 billion. And what is the export? So is already mentioned, 1.99 billion. So if we do not include the services, and then oven, knitwear, and jute. Very surprisingly, in fact, we can see that in fact in the super shops, if we consider the H&M, Mark and Spencer, so if you go all the shops, you'll find a lot of products, especially the garments products, which are originated from Bangladesh. So that is the thing which is happening. And if we particularly consider the case of Marks and Spencer, which is the second biggest outlet after UK in India, so they are selling Bangladeshi products. So that's a big in fact potential from Bangladesh. I'll be speaking on this later on. And then some of the important in fact infrastructure projects like the Kalni Bridge, Lane Link, and then if you consider the in fact the Moitri in fact power plant. So these are all the important things. But if we consider the size of the FDI, so that is not that important. Now it's the Indian FDI is the 10th, in fact, out of the important countries. So and it was around 100 million in the last fiscal year. But if you consider the case of China, so China is also implementing a lot of important projects like in the Dhaka Ashulia, in fact, elevated expressway, and then Kongfuli, and then the special economic zone, and then for the rail link projects. So these are important projects that are being implemented by Chinese funds. So what are the products that we are importing from China? So as colliery machinery, cereals, electrical and electronics, these are the most important. And the total import from China was more than 19 billion US dollars so if you consider the merchandise, so in the last fiscal year, and also our export, as I already mentioned, it's very meager. So it's 683 million US dollars in the last fiscal year. So it's not that much expected, but if we consider the combination of the items, so oven, jute, and knitwear. So these are the three important items that we would export. And the FDI, in terms of FDI inflow from India, from China, so it was the second most important. The number one is the US. So now, what are the opportunities? So that is the second part of my presentation. So the monetary policy coordination is already discussed in the policy arena, whether we can establish a kind of currency swap system with India and China, because these are the two countries with whom we have a significant cooperation in terms of trade and investment. So that is a kind of thing that we can consider. If the situation continues, then we have to have a kind of system that can facilitate and in fact the pressure to manage the pressure on the Bangladesh economy and their supply chain. So that is an important thing. So now there is a fascinating idea of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, in which one of the pillars is the supply chain. So and that can be thought of if we have an alternative kind of global supply chain, especially the energy and raw materials, and then we can think of a passage towards managing the pressure and increasing and diversifying exports. So that is an overarching issue. So we are now overwhelmingly dependent on the RNG exports. So if you consider the data of the till December, so it's around 87% of the total export, which is on RMG. And then if we add the home text, then it would be another 3%. So it's about 90%, which are basically the textile and clothing. So that's so we have to think of the diversification, and then energy. So especially in the renewable energy, we have a good in fact prospect of cooperation, and we have to look inward. So that is the thing. And if we consider the size of the South Asian economy, so India 3.4 trillion plus US dollars, and Bangladesh is the second, 460 billion. And there is a report from the Boston consultancy that its title was $1 trillion priced economy, and it has identified some of the sectors for example, the gig economy, the fourth industrial revolution. So that is going to in fact trigger and in fact facilitate the growth of the economy, and then we have six. Okay, so that is an avenue, and then if you consider the recently published IMF's report, and it has mentioned that the US economy and also European economy is likely to, so they're likely to squeeze. But if we consider the case of China and India, so they are not going to squeeze. So that is basically our in fact strength. So we can in fact think of regionally and think of Asia. And as I already mentioned, 99%, but still, so we cannot in fact realize the potential. So we need to in fact rethink the in fact marketing strategy in China. so that we can understand their minds, and what they want, and how would, in fact, we go with our products in Chinese market. So that is the thing, and also, so we have to attract the, in fact, Chinese buyers. So that's very important thing, and we have to, in fact, attract the investment from them, so that we can, in fact, implement our developmental projects and also the trade related projects. And definitely we think of, in fact, the services export. So now China is number one. So if you consider the China mainland and also Hong Kong, it's about $2 billion of export to China of services, and also Singapore, India, Japan, South Korea. So these are the in fact destination in which we are doing very well. And Thailand, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Nepal. So these are also an important areas that we can, in fact, think of export of services. And my final part is that we have to think of and also negotiate on the critical issues like the anti-dumping duty. So recently, India has extended the period of, in fact, anti-dumping duty on the jutes for again another for 5 years. So that is an area that created a lot of, in fact, uncomfortable situations. So we have to think of, and also the area of tourism. So we can think of the cross-border tourism. So that is also an area that we can facilitate. And now, so I already mentioned, so it's H&M, Marks Spencer. So these are basically the modern kind of outlets. So that's international kind of outlets. So in which we are doing very well. But in terms of other traditional products like jute, we are not doing very well. And even though despite we are facing the anti-dumping duty, but still considerable amount of jute is going to the Indian market. And very interesting thing, that's my last part. So it is an innovative kind of marketing that we can pursue to the Chinese market. So in Indian market, we are doing well in terms of localizing the products. So it's as if these are Bangladeshi products, but Indian products, but these are Bangladeshi products. So like France products. So the other, in fact, entrepreneurs that they can follow this kind of marketing model so that we can achieve good results in terms of our exports to Chinese market. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mahfouz, for a very interesting, I would say, insightful presentation. And you have brought in interesting, I would say, elements. Our export to India and China are still very modest. So we import more from them. So here is an opportunity to balance export and import if we can, as much as we can. So this is one thing that we should look at, because these are the largest economies of the future. China economy by 2040 would be in the range of approximately $40 trillion, double the size of current US economy. India would be trailing behind around $30-35 trillion. So these are the two major markets. And Dr. Mahfouz has mentioned in passing, but the ASEAN would be larger than the Indian market. That is an opportunity just across the border. So we are sitting in the middle of all these opportunities, but opportunities always do not come automatically. We have to work for them. And there, I think our integrating development with diplomacy would come in. And only then, in my view, the economic diplomacy would be really fruitful and productive. Thank you, Dr. Mahfouz, once again, for it, I would say, very nice and insightful presentation. And now, I would like to invite Mr. M. Ashik Rahman. He is a senior research fellow at BIS. He would be speaking about sustaining Bangladesh's relations in the extended neighborhood. Just 15 minutes for you. The Honorable Minister has another commitment.
Maybe I will take less than that.
That would be great. That would be great. Thank you very much.
Honorable Chief Guest and respected Chair of the session, respected Director General, and my distinguished co-panelists, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. My topic is sustaining Bangladesh's relations in the extended neighborhood. And I think we have heard a lot of discussions about Bangladesh's relationships in the neighborhood with the neighboring countries of South Asia. I want to take you a little bit wide, although there are discussions about China, but I want to focus on the extended neighborhood. So there are debates and discussions about what extended neighborhood, but for the presentation, I will limit my discussion to certain countries and region. So it's basically China and countries of Southeast Asia. And I will very briefly review the existing relationship, and then my main focus will be how we can strengthen, advance, sustain Bangladesh's relationship with these other countries in the coming days. So I start with China-Bangladesh relations, and as my previous speaker mentioned, that it is one of the major trading partner of Bangladesh, and we know that since the second half of the last decade, it has become the largest trading partner with a total trade of $20 billion. But apart from that, China is also a development partner, and however, the main focus is on investment in the infrastructure, but also FDI, the foreign direct investment. And this investment in infrastructure has really kicked off after the last visit of the Chinese President Xi Jinping in 2016. After that, the two countries come up with a number of infrastructure projects where Chinese showed and pledged to provide funding. Some of the projects that we have already realized, little bit small, but it shows the whole 40 projects that we planned in the 2017. Some of them are already online, but a lot of them are under construction, but many of them has not kicked off because of the non-availability of funding, especially in some of the cases, China have not fulfilled with the pledge they have made earlier into 2017 or 16. But I will focus more on the defense cooperation and the security cooperation. We know that China is one of the largest partner of Bangladesh when it comes to defense procurement. But one interesting fact is that Bangladesh is also the second largest export market of China when it comes to the defense sale, equipment export of China. The first being Pakistan, but the third country is very interesting. It is Algeria, which is the third largest export destination of Chinese defense equipments, 10% of its total share. And according to the SIPRI, Stockholm Institute of Peace Research Institute, that from 2013 to 2019, it's $2.37 billion. Although there are a lot of confusion there because China does not disclose all the informations. But in terms of share of Bangladesh, it's more than 70%. 70% of our defense procurement comes from China. Exactly 74% during this period from 2010 to 2019. And the equipment includes from the heavy equipments to the smallest arms that we use in our defense forces. And we have, just to give you a glimpse of what sort of thing we have imported, this is the sort of list of defense equipment that we imported from China from 2011 to 2019. And other defense cooperation includes, the regular defense training and exchanges, as well as multilateral defense exercises. So all these led to call China as one of the trusted partner and time-tested friends of Bangladesh, and also reliable strategic cooperation partner. Now to talk about the Southeast Asian countries, mostly Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Brunei. We have very good relationships, all these countries. And the relationships include, the trade relations and the overseas employment or export of services, as some of the countries like Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Brunei are major source of remittances for Bangladesh from Southeast Asia. And also there are foreign direct investment. But in recent years, I think for the last, in the last couple of months, there has been discussion on energy trade with some of the Southeast Asian countries, especially Brunei. We know that the Sultan of Brunei visited in October last year, and there was discussion about importing LNG from Brunei, and it is expected that it will start in very early in 2023. And there was also discussion, MOU have already been signed for a import of 210,000 tons of diesel in deferred payment from Brunei. But this is not the first time we have imported energy from Brunei. Earlier in 2014, there was import of energy resources from Brunei, but later it was discontinued. And when I checked some of the coal power plant, including Paira and the future power plant of Matarbari, the plan is that there will be coal imported from Indonesia as well. So energy is the new area of cooperation, energy trade with the Southeast Asian countries. But my main focus, as I said, that I want to discuss about how to advance Bangladesh's relationship in this immediate neighborhood. So first thing, is a couple of suggestions. I think the first thing Bangladesh needs is to ensure peace and stability in the region. You know, without peace, if there is a conflict, we have countries in the region who have relationships, strained relationships like India and China. And in case of any conflict in the region, it will severely impact Bangladesh's national interests. So Bangladesh needs to, if not mediate, but at least promote the idea of peaceful resolution of conflict. So that will ensure peace and stability in the region. And also some of the major issues, like we have the Rohingya issue, which has the potential to destabilize the regional stability. So we also need you know, the immediate resolution of this issue through you know, repatriation of the Rohingya refugees from Bangladesh. And the second thing Bangladesh needs to do is to continue with the policy of equidistance. We have for last couple of decades we have followed this policy of equidistance when it comes to our you know, two largest neighbors. And my opinion is that we need to follow that and try to avoid joining any alliance or alliances. But at the same time, we should continue to participate in the multilateral economic initiatives. But again, cautiously, we need to go into the detail of the multilateral initiative, including as my previous speaker mentioned, the IPEF. We need to go into the detail of these sorts of initiatives and then decide whether we should go with it or not. And then we also need to pursue the economic diplomacy, as the chairman of the session mentioned that we need to go with the economic diplomacy, and we are doing this for the last couple of decades. But what we need now, there are a lot of discussion that now we need to be a little bit more proactive, you know, because in many cases, what happens is that we don't follow up, we don't look into the implementation part of the economic diplomacy. So we need to do those things. And then we also need to continue with our economic development, because that is one of the main strengths. That is one of the reasons Bangladesh has become a significant country in the region. If we can continue with our development by overcoming the challenges that we are facing, including the energy shortage, you know, ease of business, investment, all these things, and diversification of exports, as Dr. Kabir has mentioned. So we need to overcome these challenges and continue with the development, because that will help us to continue our with the significance that we are having in the region, as well as play a greater role in the region as well as at the global level. But I would also like to mention that Bangladesh needs to be a little bit more proactive when it comes to the regional organization. For example, ASEAN and BIMSTEC. We have become a member of ASEAN Regional Forum, but after that, not much of activity. But we need to do a little bit more about ASEAN, and then BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC is showing quite promising results, but due to the COVID-19, the activities of BIMSTEC has been a little bit of less. So we need to go with that, and finally, Bangladesh needs to continue with the hedging strategy as a foreign policy behavior. So I end here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashik. I'm sorry that I had to push you, but Honorable Minister has other commitments. So we have just finished the presentation side, and we can open the floor. I know there are a lot of questions, queries at the floor. So for 15 minutes, we'll keep the floor open, and Ambassador Hanan, Professor Anwar Hussain, and then Mohammad Raihan, and then I will come. Okay, yes.
Thank you, Chair.
If you are short, then we can take more questions. And question, when you can direct the question to the panelists and they will go to the dais and respond. Yes. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. It's indeed a very insightful discussion. I have three questions. First one to Professor Nalufar, that you mentioned about new kind of neutralism in your presentation. Does it exclude, if I repeat, does it exclude more engagement or motivated by economic interest, not political, in the newly emerged mechanisms available in the Indo-Pacific region in political, security, and economic areas? Second question to Director General Foreign Affairs, Mr. Rakib. Given the assertion India, for its quest of strategic sovereignty and simultaneously hosting 100 plus countries in the name of Global South meeting, is there any prospect of India's leadership for revival of non-aligned movement in the present global conflictual scenario? And what is Bangladesh's stake in this area, if it is there? And my third question is directed to Chair. We are pretty convinced from all the discussions that Bangladesh needs all neighbors, and neighbors also need Bangladesh for the common benefit. It is obvious. But is it the time that Bangladesh should think of seriously a redefining the regional cooperation on the basis of realism and move for a strategic regional cooperation like European Union or ASEAN for initially a customs union and then a common market to ultimately claim that South Asia is sovereign? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Anwar Hussain, sir.
Thank you, distinguished chair. My presentation would be in two parts. First, some preparatory words, then some specific questions to the distinguished panel, members of the panel. Number one, I think from reading of history that Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah, the independent Sultan of Bengal between 1393 and 1410, is the father of small state diplomacy in the history of Bengal, because he was the first to cultivate relations with extended neighbors. For example, China. He sent a gift of giraffe. Giraffe is not grown or found in Bangladesh, but it was certainly imported and very expensive one indeed. But he sent to Chinese Emperor Yang Lo this gift. He invited Chinese ambassadors to live in Bangladesh, and he sent Bangladesh ambassadors to live in China. And that was his political diplomacy. Second, he had a cultural diplomacy. He invited the great poet Hafiz of Persia, but Hafiz couldn't come because of his sudden illness. But Hafiz immortalized Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah as he mentioned his name in one of the ghazals. And he had a religious diplomacy by cultivating special relations with the cities of Mecca and Medina. And he also established a madrasa at Mecca, Giyashia Madrasa, for the poor people. And he sent 39,000 mithqals, gold coins, too much of money in our present context. So I don't know whether I have taught our distinguished chair this theme while he was my student at the Foreign Service Academy, the first batch. He stood first in my courses. And second prefatory word is that India did have a Gujarat doctrine adumbrated in 1996 at the Chatham House. And Gujarat doctrine was entirely concerned with the neighbors first. Do we have anything like that neighborhood policy at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? I take the opportunity to ask this question as the State Minister for Foreign Affairs is present here. Do you have anything like doctrine espousing the nitty-gritty details of the neighborhood policy? This is the question addressed to the State Minister. Okay. Now I come to the second part of my statement. I have some specific questions. First, Lalu for Yasmin, you did talk about 4 kinds of diplomacy. Good, very good. Well conceived and well presented paper, that was. But do you have any cultural diplomacy? India does have cultural diplomacy. And do we have defense diplomacy? This diplomacy is being hosted by 2 institutions, Staff College and National Defense College, where I speak and find brigadier generals are major from many countries of the world, including our neighborhood. So does the Foreign Ministry have any policy about defense diplomacy? Second, Raqibul Haq. What has been done so far on track 2 and track 3 diplomacies by the government of Bangladesh, especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, track 2 and track 3 diplomacy? What has so far been done? And what about India's importance in our education? I know thousands of Bangladeshi students are in India pursuing higher studies, and we use books by Indian scholars while researching on various topics bearing on South Asia. So India figures quite prominently in our academic world. That has to be mentioned. And now Mahfuz Kabir. Mahfuz Kabir, he has presented a very good paper based on data and economic indicators. And by 2041, we are supposed to be the developed country. But do we really develop educationally, culturally, and otherwise by that time? Because, and what steps have so far been taken to redress the situation? Our education is in a mess. Our cultural milieu is in a mess. So, and what about my first question is, not only economic indicators of development given by the capitalist countries of the world. For example, I don't believe in per capita income and GDP, etc. These are capitalist methods of measuring our growth and development, etc. My main point is, how do the people eke out a living? Have we been able to develop the standard of living of the people in the real sense of the term? It's not that people are found to be not to be without a shirt, without a pair of sandals, etc. This is not the indicators of any development. So, do you have anything to suggest to redress the situation? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Raihan, yes. Quick question only. One question. If you can. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you very much for the but
my question is that shared sacrifice. Are we prepared for the shared sacrifice? Because in terms of water sharing, we know all the things, what is happening with the disturbed river treaty and all the things. And in terms of transit, we are giving India as a low price transit in the South Asia and everything. And another question to our minister, Bangladesh is developing relations with India in terms of energy. So we are heavily dependent on India. If after 2 or 3 years, with our 20% of our energy will come from India. So is immediate a threat because we can. Why don't we develop our own energy security or own energy capability by making refinery and establishing our own new refinery and other things? And one thing, Bangladesh is the geopolitical hub, as you know. So do Bangladesh need any national security strategy? Because we are not 1971 Bangladesh. Now 2023, we are a new Bangladesh, the rising middle Bangladesh. So what do you think about the national security strategy of Bangladesh? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, let me come. You are from?
I'm from University of Dhaka, International Relations, and doing my master's in South Asia.
Okay, great. So we'll come to the panelists here. So I think I'll request the panelists to quickly respond, and then we'll set another set, and then we'll come back to the dais again. Yes, Lailufa? Quick response.
Thank you. Yeah, not probably yet ready for shared cost of this kind of relationship or shared sacrifice? That's a very good question, Diane. Someone else will take that.
Yeah, and
another one, do we have cultural diplomacy, defense diplomacy? Yes, of course, defense diplomacy is there through even peacekeeping operations, and Bangladesh is the right now top troop contributing country in the world, and that has a major significance, and that is how Bangladesh is actually fulfilling its commitment under the League of Nations, United Nations principle of maintaining international peace and security. Bangladesh is fighting the battle for international community. And number two, cultural diplomacy. Yes, we have a vibrant cultural diplomacy. And for your information, my department has started Cultural Week. So our students will be contributing in promoting cultural diplomacy between and among neighbors and other countries as well in future. I hope. Thank you.
you can just go ahead, please.
So, a very interesting question. So, there's a group of economists who believe in the participatory and financial mode of development, but there are other issues like also and others believing that the human capability and also the happiness. So these are the things. So debate will go on, but definitely we do well in both the fronts. We need to become a $1 trillion economy by 2040 and 2041. So smart economy. So that's also an overall impact milestone. So I think that there is a clear message. So it's not something like just only GDP, but also you have to transform the whole human resources into a capital. So the human capital is there. And if you consider the case of the East Asian miracle, so all the countries did well in terms of the education, and specifically the technical education, professional education. So we are trying to transform the government has aptly devised the curriculum. So now we more of practical education, IT education in there. This will have to be continued over the period of time. So, and that's how we can become a smart Bangladesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Operating. It's working. It's working. Honestly. Honestly.
In any case, very briefly, I want to say that starting with Ambassador Hanan sir's question that the India's role in non-aligned movement. Actually, non-aligned movement, if I say that I don't see that much of active role of a non-aligned movement. I served in Neighbours in our permanent mission, so I found that their activities is mainly confined in UN building. But India's presence is very much important because India is a big country and there are many countries actually which follow the position taken by India. So that is number one. And regarding Professor Anwar sir's question about the education thing, actually there are thousands of that training are being given by India for the administrative service officers, judiciaries, police, and blah blah blah. And also there are a lot of students are also going there. So that is the thing actually we need to put a lot of attention that to increase and enhance our service sector development. And the good thing is that nowadays actually there are a lot of interest are coming up from countries like Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives. To get service sector benefit or service, some sort of cooperation from us. And there are huge demand, and that is also increasing that the education in the medical in Bangladesh. But we need to work on this because we can't expand our capacity, or there is some sort of mindset that people say that that why should we allow students from other countries where our students cannot get the medical education. But sir, it is very good when we see that the Prime Minister of Bhutan, he had education in Mymensingh Medical. The Foreign Minister of Bhutan has also had some sort of connection with Bangladesh through his education thing. So I think that these are the two sectors where we can try to expand our capacity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Although there is no specific question to me, but I just want to say a few words, respond to the questions that have been asked. First of all, about the defense diplomacy, I think Professor Lailapur Madam has already mentioned that Bangladesh is very strong in defense diplomacy, especially for participating in the UN peacekeeping missions. But there are a lot of other areas of defense diplomacy where Bangladesh is very active. The bilateral military exercises, the defense training, mutual visits, and also sending high officials, even the defense attachés, they are also part of this bigger structure of defense diplomacy. So Bangladesh is already participating in a lot of those activities, but still there are a number of new areas. For example, as I think what Sir has trying to refer is that we need to give a little bit more attention to these new areas of diplomacy. I think at the foreign ministry level, at the stakeholders level, we need to give more attention and how to promote this sort of diplomacy. And I just want to say a few words about the non-alignment issue. I think that was in the past. I think that was a strategy followed by countries during the Cold War period. Now, what the international scholars and analysts are talking about, that it is the hedging strategy that countries like India and small states like Bangladesh are following, and they need to follow that kind of strategy. So we need to talk about it, discuss more about what this hedging strategy means, because when the international relations analysts are talking about the hedging strategy, there is no disagreement. And they are sort of, it's a mix of like the balancing and the bandwagoning strategy. So we need to start this conversation that what is the hedging strategy and what it means for Bangladesh, how we can train for ourselves.
Thank you very much. I think I have one question from Ambassador Hanan. So I would say, yes, we need to perhaps redefine in the redefined context now. We are living in a new context. South Asia is the only area, I would say, only region that doesn't have any regional organization, unfortunately. So we need to reinvent. If there is something, I think there was something, and Bangladesh could take the credit for promoting that idea of SARC. Do we need to look at it or revisit it? I think Honorable State Minister is here. I think perhaps if one area where we can take the initiative, this could be one soft area. BIMSTEC has been there for 25 years. In 2004, they agreed for free trade agreement or free trade area. Today is 2022. No progress during these years. So BIMSTEC is not also very much active. So I think from the new perspective, we have to look at our interest. If we don't look at our interest, other people will look at our interest and they will exploit it. As simple as that. So maybe for South Asia, under the new context, we have to revisit perhaps some of the ideas that were creative and perhaps give us some new pathway for the future as well. Two more questions we'll take. Very quick, only question, because Honorable Minister has time constraints. So yes, Ismail Chaudhry and both of you.
I just want to enlighten, and most people know about it, but about the defense diplomacy, because it came up. Bangladesh is our staff college and NDCs are probably the unique institution in the whole subcontinent, and maybe in, rare in the world that a Chinese officer and an Indian officer and a Pakistani officer and a Bangladesh and a, Sri Lankan, they would all be in the same classroom, and neighbors, they're sharing their apartments. And often we see that the Indian officers and Pakistani officers become the closest of the friends. And, sometimes maybe after retirement, not in the service, but after retirement, this friendship continues forever. So this is a unique example. And about defense procurement, let me say that over just our recent experience has been that we are diversifying. We are not China-centric anymore, because being, one country, India has learned it the very rough way after this Soviet and Ukraine crisis, that all their 90% of their equipment are of Soviet or Russian origin. So I think Bangladesh is also now trying to diversify its sources, and many more and more Western, equipment will be seeing in future in the Bangladesh military.
Thank you. Salahuddin. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Salahuddin. I run a program titled "It's Nice to Be Nice: Honing Your Soft Skills." I was a member of Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission, was a banker, and I was a TV news host. Two words that attracted my deep attention. One was from Professor Yasmin. She said about assertive agenda setting role. And we, of course, all eagerly wait for Bangladesh to see playing this role very meaningfully. And Dr. Kabir mentioned about another idea of selective austerity. Yes, and he mentioned about being very, very selective about taking up new mega projects. Not only that, I think we should be even more careful about the present projects under implementation, whether these are running well, fine. And although these two are not directly linked, but indirectly, but strongly, these two can help us taking more advantage from foreign relationships with the neighbors and also from extended neighborhood, as Ashik Rahman told.
Thank you.
One small question, Mr. Rahman told about multilateral defense exercise with China. If it is a multilateral exercise, then what are the other countries that take part in that exercise? Please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. One lady was raising hand. Yes, because I need to be fair also to the ladies. Yeah.
My first question is that as ma'am has mentioned that being neighbor to India is both advantageous and disadvantages. Not the disadvantage is the sharing of 25,000 square kilometer of ocean with them, and ocean is important. So my question is to Honorable State Minister that what steps are we taking to solve the issue, because it was with Myanmar, it will be tougher with India, and I'm not talking about the formal diplomacy of presenting to UN and going to the UNCLOS, but the political diplomacy we are going to implement in this case. And my second question is that
On the maritime side.
is aiming as
Maritime side.
What is the issue? Is to
the
solve.
sharing of ocean, of beyond the ocean, 25,000 square kilometer of water dispute with India.
No, there is no dispute right now.
There is a sea dispute.
No, no. We have demarcated the maritime boundary with India. As such, there is no problem. So we have already demarcated through arbitration.
Myanmar.
That has also been demarcated peacefully, so that both the issues, maritime issues with both Myanmar and India has been resolved. There is no running battle as such, running a problem. Okay, next question, please. What is it?
We're ending the year as the chair of ILA and Government Climate Group. We have also been elected as the chair of UNECA member. So at the end of this last year, what outcome we are taking out from this chairmanship and what national interest this chairmanship will be serving us? And my question is to Lalipur Yasmin ma'am, it's a little bit of controversial thing. I don't think that we can talk about, sorry sir.
Finish.
We don't talk about it a lot, but the situation with Myanmar has taken a different turn, and Rohingya is not the only problem now. So what kind of security concern we are seeing from our perspective, and what kind of safety we are concerned about in the Bangladesh?
Okay, thank you very much. One question from the middle. Who would like to take up? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. This is Nur Muhammad Sharkar. I'm research fellow from Bangladesh Institute of Law and International Affairs, BILIA. I have two questions, not specific to anyone from the panel. One of these is about maritime security. Bangladesh has obtained a very huge maritime area in 2012 and 2014. But it's very important for Bangladesh now to safeguard this area and take potential out of it. And also the Indian Ocean is becoming very hot in the upcoming days because of regional and external regional powers are involved there. So what would be the Bangladesh's take on this? Because it also involves Bangladesh direct neighbors, India and Myanmar, and also Sri Lanka, Maldives, and extended neighborhood like China. So this is the first one. Second one is Bangladesh's latest economic diplomatic success about vaccine diplomacy. I mean, how Bangladesh has obtained its experience. Bangladesh has successfully done its achievements regarding this issue by, on the one hand, mobilizing the internal resources, and the other hand, both employing bilateral and multilateral initiatives in vaccine diplomacy. So whether that can be an example, emulative example for Bangladesh to some other extent, like cultural diplomacy and all these. So I think these two questions I'd like to pose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we have to come to the panelist here. Anybody? Okay. Ashi? Anybody? Microphone.
Thank you. I think I'll take up the issue of maritime security. I think the delimitation that you mentioned, that we have resolved our maritime dispute with India and Myanmar, and that was the same time. After that, we devised Bangladesh and but it has also doubled in the last 9 or 10 years.
Okay, so what we are doing, we are increasing our defense budget and we are modernizing our army, and that is also part of the hedging strategy that you have to modernize while you are maintaining equidistance from the rising powers, while you are cooperating in economic areas. You also have to continue your effort for military modernization, and Bangladesh is doing that. And as I mentioned, that the procurement is going on, and as Ishaq sir has mentioned that we are now diversifying. So a lot of things are going on, and I think the government is on track to enhance the security in the military affairs. I think so. That is
Okay,
from my side.
thank you. The COVID, I think your question was more on observation. Yes, that was one of the best example of our diplomacy during the COVID time, and that could perhaps be a template. So before I give the floor to the Honorable State Minister, let me just, not summary, just share some thoughts, for example. I think taking cue from Raihan, he mentioned about shared sacrifice. Since we are, as a region, if we look at the South Asia or Southeast Asia, we are somehow connected or interconnected with each other through geography, through other connectivities. So we can definitely share the benefits, and also we must have the spirit of sacrifice as well. That's the basis of relationship that I think when Bangladesh tries to develop its neighborhood policy, that could be one principle that we can follow. Now, with regard to any foreign policy of any country, I can summarize, I mean, this is my personal observation. Two issues dominate. One is the security, another is the prosperity. So these are the two issues. So everything we can put under in these two boxes. So security wise, South Asia, we have to understand South Asia or extended neighborhood is currently becoming volatile. And we have very distinct national perspective on security issue. So there is no common definition, theme or common platform to define or redefine or refine the security concept from a larger perspective. So this is one issue that we have to keep in mind while developing our neighborhood policy. SARC has not worked because of the security problem. BIMSTEC is not working perhaps because of some of the issues on the security side, partially economic side as well. So we have to understand that while we are talking about the neighborhood or extended neighborhood, the security element remains a very important element. I remember when I was talking to my Indian friends a few years back, they said that we can develop our relationship with Bangladesh if Bangladesh addresses our security problem. That was their perception about Bangladesh. Once they felt Bangladesh provided some security, they thought other things can move ahead. And now I would say we have a multidimensional relationship, but we have to also think about our security. They have thought about their security. We have to also not underestimate our demand or our aspiration for ensuring our security. On the prosperity side, I think we have already discussed, our panelists have highlighted many of the issues. I would like to highlight a couple of things here, or I should say flag them perhaps, or even reiterate them. One is the trade issue. On the trades, this is very important. One of the drivers of, or one of the major pillars of our economic growth is trade. And trade, interestingly, trade, we are in the middle of a chain. We import from China and India and export to Europe and America. So we are in the middle of a chain. We add just value. Now, how can we enrich or empower or strengthen that chain to our benefit? That we have to think about. So trade, yes, India $19 billion, we export not even 2 billion or 2 billion maximum. China, we import around that amount, but we export less than $1 billion. So we have to think about how we can diversify, how we can improve our export competitiveness. Then comes the investment. The future Bangladesh or Bangladesh in the next 10 years or 20 years would need a lot of investment, both from our internal domestic sources and from external sources. Domestically, we have to undertake a huge reform. Bangladesh is currently the lowest in terms of GDP tax ratio. Where the government will get money from? We have to improve that. That's a significant, challenging task for any government. Second is FDI, one of the lowest in the region. So we have to finance our projects that are coming up down the line. So we need that. So investment-wise, we have to look at the globe or look at the region who can really invest in Bangladesh and how Bangladesh can make ourselves attractive destination for foreign investment. Then comes the infrastructure. How can we get connected? We have done a lot. I think significant progress has been made during the last 10, 15 years. I think we need now to go beyond our borders and get connected to other countries. With India, we have some connectivity, but I would say it is only physical connectivity. We need to deepen our connectivity in other areas as well. Energy sector. Question has been asked. Should we be dependent on others, or we should try to really improve our competitiveness on the energy sector or diversify our energy sources, for example? Then comes migration issue. Bangladeshis have 13 million people working outside. How many people are working in South Asia? Migration issue is still a kind of bête noire, meaning that it's still a pejorative word in South Asia. How can we talk about regional integration unless we accept that migration is a positive element contributing to our economies? So this is an area we have to look at, because Indians are working in Bangladesh. Bangladeshis should be allowed to work in India as well. But well, saying is better than done. But issue is, India will only hire Bangladeshis if we are competitive in terms of the labor market attraction. So that's our thing that we have to do. Technology exchange. That's a very important area, because we are looking at the world. Professor Anwar Hussain has asked a question about what happens when Bangladesh becomes smart Bangladesh. That Bangladesh would be knowledge-dependent Bangladesh. Not only physical, on physical improvement and physical would not be enough. We have to be knowledge-based economy, and we have to go there. And that's not very easy stuff. And the last point from my side, coordination. Nailoofar Yasmin has talked about economic diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, diaspora diplomacy, other diplomacy. But now the question is, my question, this is my personal view, is there any coordination? Do we have one national voice or multiple voices? I mean, in my observation, I have seen only possibly during the COVID time, Foreign Ministry has met or sat down with 5 ministries to coordinate. That coordination produced the best COVID diplomacy that Nur Mohammed has mentioned about. So if we can coordinate better domestically, then we can perform or engage better with the outside world, whether regionally or beyond the region. So coordination is extremely important. We have to think about that. And unless there is a coordination, and beyond that, we must also have a national consensus on defining our national interest. Because when the foreign policy issue comes into picture, it should be driven by national interest. I repeat, national interest. So with these words, I should like to thank all our panelists for their excellent presentations, thought-provoking. And I'm sure that those presentations and the observations and comments coming from the floor will give some guidance or some suggestions, good suggestions to incorporate, based on which this can perhaps prepare a policy paper which can help the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to really develop the neighborhood policy that we have been talking so long. So with these words, I would like to take leave of you and now hand over the microphone to the Honorable State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Shahriar Alam, who is an active, I would say, not only a minister, but I see he's quite active, quite interested in subjects, and quite an innovative person. So I hope that with his leadership, we can find new avenues to improve our foreign policy routes.
Thank you, Ambassador M. Humayun Kabir, who is presiding today's seminar on a very important and very relevant topic. Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies base Director General and his team has put together a fantastic program today titling Strengthening Bangladesh's Foreign Relations with Neighbors in the Evolving Global Order. Now, of course, if we want to break them down, but before I get in there, I'd like to thank all the panelists, the keynote presenter on my own personal behalf and on behalf of Ministry of Foreign Affairs for your hard work and thought-provoking presentation, and all the participants. We have very distinguished audience who some of them are much more qualified than we are sitting in the podium and trying to give you an impression that we are an expert on these subjects, which we are probably not, but responsibility lies on us, and that's why probably we are here today. But I'd like to congratulate all the participants who actively participated in the Q&A session. I know that some of you were keen to ask more questions, but I recommend to the Director General that if you still invite questions in written form, and we can build a network, and you can always go back to them by email or WhatsApp or in any other mode. It's always a pleasure coming back to this, and I'd like to congratulate and thank the Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin for accommodating my request, deferring the event by a couple of hours, which is still not proving enough, unfortunately. But we came to an end. Now, of course, I don't want to repeat what was said, but let me start again by saying that it is a privilege, and I thank BIS once again. This seminar is taking place at a time, and I do not think anyone in this room will deny that we are transiting through one of the most important, significant, if not the most important or significant time of our life. Of course, for individuals who witnessed, and some of them are present here today, witnessed the historic event that unfolded in the 70s, especially the War of Liberation of 1971. But for the present generation, people who are responsible for most of them, this is the most significant time of our era. You can, even if I want to leave a blank, depending on your perspective, your geographical location, you can say it's an interesting time or challenging time or opportune time. But this COVID-19 and the Ukraine-Russia war has given us a platform which is proving challenging, to say the least, for every single country of this planet. And the topic is more relevant because of this perspective, because it says global order, foreign relations with neighbors in the evolving global order. Now, of course, I've seen a couple of participants try to define the neighbors, the location. And to me also, it's very difficult when we say neighbor to go beyond South Asia and then straight up to ASEAN and up to China. We don't go past, let's say, Pakistan or Afghanistan. And it's too many, I'm sure, that it will surprise you to remind you that SAARC, which we believe is only our own neighborhood, actually involves Afghanistan even. Now, if you think that in 7 members countries, or at least a couple of them found it very difficult to agree on certain things,
but you just add the Afghanistan element into the entire equation. And it's unfortunately to many is a non-starter, even though we do believe that we still have a future. So what I'm trying to say is it is a very tough time to sail through this rough water. Now, of course, BIMSTEC, it sounds like, yes, of course, the number is correct. It was founded 25 years ago, but the progress that we have made, minus these last 2 years or so during COVID, is giving us renewed enthusiasm and hope that BIMSTEC countries can probably do wonder. Now, countries, if I may, once again, SAARC is actually original 7 plus Afghanistan. But if I just read out the name of the BIMSTEC member states, Thailand, Myanmar, Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, India, Maldives, 8 countries. Now, out of that, unfortunately, we have issues in more than one country, and Sri Lanka, of course, as well. Now, there's probably not governance or kind of political issue. It's usually economic, but more than one country out of the remaining 7 has serious issues, and it's very difficult to engage with some of them. Now, how do you make progress? But still, the Secretariat is doing their best, and the countries otherwise that all multilateral forum, even including European Union, had to submit this list of negative items, but it's other way around in case of BIMSTEC, that majority of the countries actually did submit their list of products that they are willing to include in the duty-free list. So there are some progress, but a summit is needed to kind of seal some of those initiatives. Now, coming back to, I think I'll feel comfortable if I kind of finish addressing some of the issues that was raised from the floor. And of course, we do have a neighborhood foreign policy dictum, and it's not me, it's DG Rakibul, who looks after the territorial wing South Asia. And if we limit at least the definition of neighborhood to within South Asia, this is, of course, that includes promotion of friendship among these countries, strengthening the sectoral partnership that we have with these countries, also use of soft power to with impressive tangible impacts, and promotion of people-to-people contact. These are largely the policies that applies not only just in case of South Asian countries or neighborhood that I would ideally like to extend, ASEAN or beyond ASEAN, then China, and if you want to take it to the Middle East in the West. But these policies actually within the larger one that was tabled by none other than founding father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, friendship to all, malice towards none, to none. And that's how, if you want to break it down, these are the elements that helps us to achieve the objective that we want to ideally achieve. Now, also, I think it's now I'll try and come to what I came here to say. Of course, some of your opinion presentation influenced and had some impact on what I wanted to say and what I will say, but hopefully I'll not miss out anything major. First of all, again, refer back to today's topic, which is strengthening Bangladesh's foreign relations with neighbors in the evolving global order. Now, we ourselves needed to be a good neighbor. Now, I do not think there is any denial in any parts of the world. I repeat, any parts of the world that Bangladesh is a good neighbor. I think we have demonstrated it enough. There was a lack of continuity. What was declared and aspired by founding father of the nation was completely destroyed after 15th August 1975. But since at least for last 14 years, and prior to that, during 1996 till 2001, there was an attempt to revive that, and we are very fortunate, we are grateful for everyone who has worked hard for the continuation of the policy of the government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the worthy daughter of father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, that Bangladesh has managed to establish herself as a good neighbor, Now, as much as it applies for us that we look for good neighbor in our neighborhood, any other country in the world will also look for a good neighbor. Now, while I say this, I request you people who are aware of the different geopolitical challenges, that you position yourself in any other region or country, that how many region, it's very difficult for me to spell out the name of the country or the region where they are in conflict. That's why I need your help to understand this, that in majority of the region of this world, they all have a country or two or three who are, not acting the way their other neighboring countries ideally want them to do. In that context, despite all the issues that we have in South Asia, this is still one of the most peaceful among the regions of the world. And that wasn't easy. That needed someone like Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to stand firm. The issue of connectivity is being discussed so often. There are demands, there are expectations, there are even further demand beyond the 6,000 visas that High Commission of India in Bangladesh is issuing. Why it is not 10,000, why it is not 14,000, why I cannot just go back and forth the way I want to. But imagine 15 years ago, this particular issue of connectivity was narrowed down to transit, and how cheaply it was used in domestic politics of Bangladesh. As I keep on repeating, I'll repeat it once again, and some of you have heard me saying this 1,000 times already, that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina had to take a personal political risk. She actually risked her political career and was successfully tabled the idea, and the way she crafted it, it is now a demand and expectation of the masses. And the political parties who use these transit as a cheap political tool is not kind of neither, it's very difficult for them to use that as an issue going forward. And the stability, it's not just we just limit it within India and Bangladesh, but it's actually the region also. If there is a terrorist outfit, if there is a armed group with wrong motive, wrong intentions, can destabilize an entire region, not just the bordering area of a country or two. So the peace and tranquility that was brought from dedication of our law enforcing agencies, intelligence, but it's obviously needed a political will, a political directive. And that has made a sea change in the affairs of this region. And we must not forget that. Had we achieved it well before, let's say 2010, if it was achieved, if Bangabandhu was alive, we could have achieved that, or we would have never been into that issues or problems. But the amount of resources that went behind to neutralize those forces by all the countries of this region, it's not just Bangladesh, it's not just Nepal, it's not just Myanmar or India. There are every single country, probably except with an exception of Bhutan or a bit of Maldives, including Sri Lanka, spent a significant part of their GDP, very hard-earned GDP. And let's not forget, we are one of the poorest region of the world till today, had to spend a considerable amount of GDP for peace and security. So I think that was a game changer, the policy of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to remain as a good neighbor, and that also rather provoking other countries to remain good to each other. But some of the vehicle tool that we use to come this far and then take us to the next level, because yes, okay, I do have my own version, like it or not. Let's say this $14 billion trade and then $12 billion trade deficiency, whether that is with India and with China, the figure is probably, as opposed to 12, is about 15. But just imagine that we do not have India. We do not have a neighbor that produces all the lentils, the paddy, the rice, the wheat, sugar, vegetable oil, onions, you just name it. All the essential that we need every day in all the 35 million households that we have in Bangladesh. One way or another, we have more than one product or item being imported from India that we are buying from our grocery stores in our neighborhood every day. Just imagine that you do not have that in your neighborhood. It's in faraway land. It's probably in Canada, or it's even Australia, which is not as far as Canada probably. The prices, when the market demands and price, there is a fluctuation. We can go down there, we can negotiate, we can open the door again, and we can bring in fresh consignments, and we can try and stabilize or bring in some sort of normalcy into the market affairs in 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time. But put yourself once again, like as I did in case of, not so good neighbors, the countries who are not producing or do not have immediate access to these consumables. Look at Africa. After the war broke out, I visited a couple of African countries. One of them was, there's no harm naming Egypt. Egypt is the largest importer of wheat in the world. And guess who is the largest exporter of wheat? It's Ukraine. And there is no export, there's no import. Can you imagine what's going to happen to Egypt, or what was about to happen to Egypt had we not, with the mediation of UN and Turkey, Finland, the grain initiative that was launched. And, we are having a ship getting loaded at Odessa, as Filippo Grandi tweeted this morning, the UNHCR boss. In Egypt, the government provides a ration to every household with 5, what's that bread called? Do you know that? The Egyptian bread, there's a special name to it. Kupsa? Yeah, something like that, kupsa. As a ration, bread is such an essential commodity. Government of Egypt provides 5 breads to every household every day. Can you imagine shutting that off? The country will starve, the people will starve to death. Now, as a country, they don't produce much or probably nothing. And now Egypt has got Nile, they have fresh water. But there are so many other African countries, just sub-Saharan and Saharan countries. They do not produce anything. It's all based on imports. I think the story is getting too long. Let's cut it short. It's essential within that 12, or in case of China, $15 billion trade imbalance. It's essential, essential, and essential. And the remainder of that, which is again going to be good 50%, are the industrial raw material that we convert, and we converted it to almost $55 billion last year. The $45 billion export of clothing, majority of the raw materials comes from China and India. So again, will you be better off importing from China or India or not? We do not produce that. Someone asked about the energy independence. Now, in the strategy, it's deliberate. We do not have resources in Bangladesh. Unfortunately, we do not have hydro resource. We have little coal reserve, but again, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina pledged and promised that, environment comes first, agriculture comes first. We don't want to sacrifice our very fertile delta and replace that with dirty coal. So we are not exploring our own coal, which probably wasn't still enough to produce all the electricity that we needed. So we need to tap into the resources of other countries. Now, of course, we want to import more, and that is helping us to be energy secure. But that's not only with India. We have signed an agreement with Nepal already. We want to produce, it's not new for the journalist friend, but it's probably new to some of our younger friends, is that we want to produce hydropower in Nepal and in Bhutan, and we want to bring into Bangladesh via India. And we have had principal agreement, but in the first phase, it looks like putting together a hydropower plant from scratch. You're talking about multi-billion-dollar, and then you're talking about anything between 8 to 10 years. So rather than doing that, and while we pursue that, we will start tap into the production facility who are already producing, largely private sector owned. So there's nothing wrong in that. But of course, we will maximize use of our resources, whatever we have, and then spread out, and so that we don't put all eggs in one basket. Now, coming back to what I wanted to say at the beginning is very quickly the couple of things that the foreign policy dictum, as Syed Anwar sir raised that as a question to us. I'll just elaborate, and that was what I wanted to come and tell you is of course promote partnership and cooperation. And you have seen many whatever I said briefly so far, and some the frequent exchange of visits. And just imagine one thing. 2 years ago, when the world was under lockdown and complete shutdown, all the heads of state of the government came here on invitation of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to celebrate the birth centenary of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, within 5 working days. I think that has never happened in the history of the world. And our DG mentioned that one of our major neighbors, which is India, of course, in the same calendar year, it's quite historic that President and Prime Minister visited the same country, and at the same time not visiting any other country almost. I'm sure Mr. Modi has undertaken a couple of other visits, but surely for the President, it was quite unique also. So promote partnership and cooperation and frequent visits. The number of visits between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Maldives, Bangladesh and Nepal and Bhutan are so frequent. Even in case of China or Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, the frequency of these exchanges, and of course, it is new. When Veteran Ambassador Humayun Kabir was working as an active diplomat in his days, I'm sure diplomacy only meant meeting physically, and in some cases writing letters to each other, then wait for a response for like 2 weeks, even if it was an urgent message a week. But now you can pick up telephone. It's not just that it's COVID that it has forced us to go virtual. It's even prior to those days, the pre-COVID days. I think after coming back from one of the visits, it was probably again India that we actually told the press and briefed the press that in our region we want to replicate what they do largely in the West. You get to know almost every now and then that Prime Minister of United Kingdom has called President of the United States, and but it was unheard of in our region that Prime Ministers and Presidents talking over telephone frequently. So we are kind of recalibrating ourselves, the way we engage, the modalities that we use, the technology that we use. The second one is trade and commerce. I think I have kind of covered that, but we have challenges. There are a lot of non-tariff barriers that we need to eliminate, and no denial, absolutely no denial. Whether SARC is successful or a failure, BIMSTEC is a starter or a non-starter. Let's pick up an example that we initiated. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina tabled during the last SARC summit in Kathmandu. We said integrated grid for power transportation, electricity transportation. The other one was road connectivity. Now, when it failed, all the leaders went back home saying that, okay, we'll be signing all this agreement within a month or so, because some of the countries said that they needed to go back for the domestic obligations to the capital, but they promised that they will do it in a week, in a month or so. But of course, things fell apart. That didn't happen. But we didn't stop there. We narrowed it down to 4 countries, and that's where BBIN came from. Then after 2 years, we realized that, Bhutan is not greatly comfortable allowing unlimited number of vehicles, because they have very strict, very ambitious environmental standards. And we respect that, we understand that. So we are bringing it down to Bangladesh, Nepal, and India. So, we are trying to be innovative. Whether SAARC is failing and then we are stopping pushing an agenda, no. I mean, these are the alternative avenues that we are exploring. And that's why you see that Bangladeshi goods trucks are carrying Nepalese and Bhutanese produces, back and forth. And same applies for grid, and we are adding a few more elements to it. But also ease of transportation shipment. We have introduced some new routes. I think it will excite you. We're talking over lunch about those old riverine routes, but an Indian cruise ship has sailed, even though it got stuck, in fact, because the navigation channel in parts of India were, and this time of the year, it's the draft of the river is at its lowest. But again, we have successfully managed to ship or allow ships to ply through Bangladeshi river channels up to Guwahati. Only day before yesterday, we have allowed barge or ship load of construction steel material through Tripura, and it is not just one way. It's not that old typical transit that we are doing. It's connectivity. And it's within trade and commerce. We, of course, working on the comprehensive economic partnership agreement, SEPA, with India, and good progress has been made. And we have Benapol Petrapol that's running 24/7, 365 days a year. We are hoping that there will be a few more other ports. There are heavy, frequent demand of border huts, and that's how we have managed to deal with informal, illegal trade in the border, to put it straight. And also, we are trying to rationalize whenever there are pricing discussions. If it is cheaper in one country and higher in another, there's a tendency that goods will kind of flow unnaturally but naturally to each other's country. So we are bringing those elements into our costing structure and pricing structure. Trade with Nepal and Bhutan has increased, and as you know, due to the historic contribution and being the first country to recognize Bangladesh, Bhutan is enjoying duty-free status of their product, and that was granted or given long time ago, despite well before any discussion of such nature took place with any other country. As you know, Nepal as a country is doing well, and we are very happy to note that. And we want to help support high level, even well before I became State Minister of Foreign Affairs. I remember Madhav Kumar, Nepal. I had the privilege to take him to Mongla to see the facility. And then within 3 months, there was a trial shipment of train full of fertilizer was unloaded in Mongla, traveled through Ishwardi, Rahunpur, trucked, and then well into Nepal. And it's now frequent. Water sector cooperation, of course, we do have some unfinished job or issues here, but we are making some progress. Joint River Commission meeting has taken place after almost a decade. And there are promises being made that during the first half of this year, In fact, the aspiration was to do it during the first quarter, to have another round of meeting. And we have seen seriousness from India to take and make significant progress. And I think, but again, we don't want to confine with India alone. When we talk about neighbor, I think a greater discussion should take place also, because some of the rivers are originated in China, in Bhutan, and in other parts of the world. So a wider, larger discussion requires some innovation from our part, and we'll see what can be done in that. But we'll pursue and use the current vehicles that we have. In power sector cooperation, I think through the answer of the question raised by the student of IR from Dhaka University, I have addressed that, and we are going beyond India into Bhutan and Nepal. Connectivity, I think while mentioning motor vehicle agreement and BBIN, I have covered that, but these are our these are the elements that's helping us to strengthen, again, to remind you, our neighborhood foreign policy. Next one is, of course, capacity building and people-to-people contact. I think some of the veterans present here in the audience, they mentioned some of the fantastic institutions like NDC, National Defense College, where we are inviting students and professionals from across the globe, and this has become a great venue for them to meet, which is impossible for them otherwise. And some of the countries are reciprocating that. Our even own, with a very humble capacity, our own Foreign Service Academy is now enrolling students from the neighborhood. We have had students from Nepal and Bhutan, and hopefully beyond, in next couple of months, that will cover pretty much South Asia. So exchanges of education and technology between the neighbors is also helping us to propel to fight the enemy, which is poverty. Demonstration of soft power through humanitarian and emergency assistance. Now, of course, I started off with Afghanistan and SARC, and may I just humbly remind you that even during or after Taliban took the control back of Afghanistan, when hastily the forces left, we have sent them help, and it wasn't easy. Sending a Bangladesh Air Force C-130, try and negotiating a safe landing and safe departure through our embassy in Iran, Tashkent. It wasn't easy, but our brave soldiers have done that for the much needed Afghan people who were suffering due to lack of medicine, food, and clothes. We have also made contribution in our neighborhood when there were natural calamities, disasters like in Nepal. We have done so during COVID to Maldives, even though it was token to India. But when it came to serious issues like shortage of foreign currency, we have extended support to our other neighbors as well. So this is actually a completely new dimension in our foreign policy dictum, especially in the neighborhood. And we'll continue to do so based on our strength, ability at that particular given time. I would like to thank you for your patience hearing. Now, what I'd like to say in conclusion that, I'm not a professional diplomat. I cannot possibly use the term that the fellow from the Dhaka University professor or some of our diplomats or retired diplomats are using. But what I understand is the tectonic plate of diplomacy and the relationship, the global order is shifting, and rather shifting fast. You don't expect there were phases that you can have a continuity of a policy. Of course, our principal position, friendship to all and malice to none, will remain intact no matter what. But within that, while trying exercising and implement that policy, you can have a period, or you could have had a period of like 20 years or 30 years, and have some relationship with a particular country or a region. But unfortunately, things has moved so much. You need to remain alert, vigilant. But one thing that Bangladesh will never do, compromise in the areas of the core founding principle of Bangladesh. Keeping those intact, Bangladesh will continue to mobilize its resources. We have large Bangladeshi diaspora. We do have, of course, some soft power in 2023, and we are only going to strengthen and gain more strength and momentum in coming days. And through proper and planned use of those, we will continue to expand both in depth and breadth the relationship that we have established as a good neighbor in our neighborhood. And we hope that our neighbors will try and reciprocate that to best of their ability. And these are more relevant when the world is undergoing a complex situation of transition. With this understanding, our government is persistently working to consolidate our relations with neighbors for regional stability, prosperity, and development, and will continue to do so in coming days. With these words, I conclude. Thank you so much. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu, May Bangladesh live forever.
Thank you, Honorable
Well,
Chief Guest. Distinguished audience, we have come to an end of today's seminar. On behalf of BISS, I sincerely thank you all for your active participation and enthusiasm that you have shown today. Before we conclude, they humbly request our Honorable Chief Guest to join for a group photo with our Director General, Sir, Session Chair, and the panelists.